Alright, we should be live. Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another Moonshire Monday, and I am so excited for this one, for a lot of reasons. First, the camera angle is probably a lot better than it used to be, because I was in my recliner before, and I was like leaned all the way back here. No, it's a lot better now, because my head's closer to the camera. Good perspective overall. But also, I've just made so many changes to the game, and I'm excited to talk about all of them, because it's going to need some input from you guys too, I think, in order to get a really good gauge on what direction to take some of this stuff. But we're going to give chat a couple seconds to kind of catch up. I know there's always a bit of a delay there. Let me make sure that everything is set up properly. It should be. But once everyone's in the chat and the thing is all propagated and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and show off all of the new features that I added. And actually, there's a lot of different things that I need to do. One thing that I'm working on with an artist is fixing up these tiles, because right now, I wasn't really quite satisfied with how the tiles looked over here. Because this is how the tiles looked before. It looks fine with the flowing grass, but I think it needs to blend a little bit better. YouTube could do with you 3 ads. Yeah, I'm noticing something weird a little bit with the stream this time. I'm going to see if I can make any adjustments to that. But I'm sorry if it's causing problems. That's really weird. Because yeah, at the moment it kind of sounds like no one's able to see it right now. It says frequency low. I'm gonna give it one more minute just to see if it's able to clear up. Use uBlock origin. I mean, if ads are actually as bad as what they're being right now, because right now I think it's actually blocking a lot of people from seeing the stream. Because normally when I start the stream, I get a few more people chatting, but right now it doesn't seem like people are able to see it, which is kind of unfortunate. So hopefully it kind of clears up in a second or so. If this really is a problem, then I'm going to turn ads off. I tried a stream a week or so ago where I turned ads completely off. And it did result in slightly lower viewership, I think. So for every stream I started, I got at least 1 ad. Man, I would really like to have 0 ads. You know, during stream, I guess I could turn... Okay, for this stream, we're going to leave it on, and I want to see how bad it is. Because right now, this beginning of the stream, I'm not a fan. Like, I really would like the stream to start and people would be immediately into it. So that is something I'm going to consider adjusting. I only watch like 5 streams. I mean, even still, like that's a big reason why I don't personally watch Twitch streams. Twitch streams is because the ads are really bad. Whenever I go on Twitch, I click on someone's stream, and then I have to wait through a bunch of ads before I can actually see 1 second of the stream. That's a big problem. And I'm worried that the same thing is happening with this stream. I would really hope that's not happening. But if it is, maybe there can be a way I can turn ads off during the stream and then enable it for the VODs, maybe? You got a new chair? Yeah, I'm just sitting in a different chair. So my recliner is still right here. Like you can actually kind of see it a little bit, but it's right next to me. But for this stream, I think that it's going to be better if I'm in more of like an upright position, because my recliner really does lean back. I love that the character's blinking. Yeah, I added that back in recently. So I used to have the character blinking in a really old version of the game, maybe even the Steam version, but the problem was I had it bound to a sprite sheet, and it was really hacky the way I did it. I have been watching some streams, what's been going on. Really, I've just been rewriting a lot of the core functionality, and this stream I'm going to be showing off a lot of the changes, because the big one is that I added a jump button. So the player is now able to jump, and I love how it looks. And I'm still trying to decide how to blend this into the gameplay. I'm trying to decide to what extent the jump is going to be required or as part of like the gameplay, but I'm starting to think it's going to be a very big part, where I'm thinking about replacing the roll with it. So another interesting thing about the jump is that I've made it really interactable. All of these props you can now jump on. So I can like jump on this thing and break it like that. Oh my gosh, that's so satisfying. That's so satisfying. Platforming, exactly. It's like, I think that this opens up a lot of options for platforming. That is awesome. But yeah, the jump I'm super happy with, because I made new animation frames for it, and the way that the weapon moves with it too, it's so smooth. It's so smooth and nice, and the way that like you bounce off of the different props. Every prop can be jumped on, so like even though the anvil doesn't break, you can just like jump on anything. And I think that's gonna make the game a lot more interactive, where it doesn't feel quite as static. Now, you're still not able to go out of bounds, obviously. That's meant to be a hard wall. This seems cool. I think the jump could be used for secret areas. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, totally. That's a good example, because this telescope currently doesn't break. If you were really good, I bet that you could like combo off of it. And then the other thing is that I made it so that the jump does damage when you jump on an enemy. So, bam. You can like jump on stuff and deal damage to enemies like that. I love it. It's so fun. I'm a big fan of the jump. I think the jump is going to be a really big improvement to the overall gameplay, just because before, when you're bound to the ground, it's still fun. It's still good when you're bound to the ground, but having this extra dimension to it just adds a lot. Then the big question that maybe we'll talk about too is I need to decide if I want to keep the roll, because there's the roll. My problem with the roll is that the roll hides the weapon, and also the roll bounces you to the ground. So I could have it set up where you jump and then you can roll like that. He's got 2 ads. Oh, come on, man. I'm so sorry about that. I wonder if there is something I can do about that. But yes, everyone, please keep me updated about the ad situation, because I've been flip-flopping between turning ads off and turning them on. I think it was a couple weeks ago I turned it all off, and I was kind of worried that it was affecting performance. So I'll keep experimenting with it, because I really hate it when ads interrupt the stream. That really grinds my gears, you could say. Roll jumping is awesome, yeah. Jumping normally, you can only jump so far. Make sure that the volume's okay. But maybe you could combine it with a roll and get a little bit of extra distance. What the heck? I swear I fixed that. There was a change that I made where the roll is supposed to make the player start falling immediately. In my opinion, I feel like rolling in the air should work like something where if you jump and roll, you dash in a way, and it works like a roll on the ground. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Well, I've been experimenting and thinking about a few different options for that, because having a roll is nice because you get a speed boost. Having the jump is nice because you can jump over stuff and jump on top of things. That's fun. So they both have their pros and cons, and also you can roll into things too to break them. That looks awesome too. So I like the roll as well. You have def platforming. Yeah, that's just a brand new thing that I added like this past week. Something clicked in my head where it's like I really want to add a jump button. So I made it so the player can jump. And I'm trying to decide if I want the roll to be a part of this too, where if you can roll midair. The bigger, aka heavier item, you jump less. Possibly. That's a cool idea. And that's one thing about the jump, is that it's fully customizable based on what mob you're using. So I have this hero mob. That's the one that like the player character is. And there's a jump height value. And I can set this to anything. I'll set this to 50. Wow. So high. That's cool. You can make it that you scrap roll and make it dash in air. Add a mode to switch between jump or dash, so you can allow the player to use them sometimes. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that there are situations where having a roll is nice because you can like get a speed boost from it. But then I definitely do want the jump in some way. Jump boost potion, that's interesting. I think it would be cool if there's some situations that just lead to you jumping really, really high like this. That configuration's sick. Thank you. This kind of reminds me of Mario and Luigi. Totally does! Yeah, because Mario and Luigi, man, I wish there were more games like the Mario and Luigi games where they have the really high fidelity pixel art, and it's really high quality, but it's in like a 3D environment like mine. A 3D, you know, it's fake 3D, because the player is jumping, it looks like the player is jumping into the third dimension, but there is no third dimension. This is a 2D game. Is there swimming in the game? Yep, there is. Right now it's a little janky. Also, I noticed that the debris is sitting on top of the water. That's not supposed to happen. Can you roll while in the jump state? Yes, you can. You can roll like that. So you definitely could combine them. That's just the question is, do I want to combine them? So something that I was considering is just for funds. I'm gonna call it 120 and see what that looks like when it's super, super high. Woo! Woo! That looks really weird. I need to re-add the splash effect because there needs to be like water particles that fly up. I wanted to try Mario and Luigi style platforming. It's just hard for me to figure out the collision quirks that come with it. That is definitely the hardest part. That is definitely the hardest part, and I'm gonna demonstrate the collision quirks since you brought it up. That's definitely a very tricky aspect of this. So I'm gonna go to debug, and I'm going to show the colliders, because when you see what the colliders look like, it really changes the perspective of how a game like this works with this fake third dimension. So this is how the characters look normally. All the hitboxes are like rough rectangles or octagons. And then when the player jumps, look, the player's hitbox doesn't follow the player's like visual body. The collision remains on the ground. So the player's collider is still on the ground no matter what state it's in. So when I jump on this, so it's doing like conditional checks on the type of collision, because normally when you walk into a box, you can push it around. But then you can also jump over top of it like that. So when you're in the air, it's doing a Z-axis check to see what's the height, conceptually, of this box, and should we allow them to pass through each other? Because right now it's not letting me pass through, and then I jump and it can. In fact, you can kind of see it for a moment. There's a moment where you can see I'm in the air for a slight second, and it's still not letting me pass through it. You can see it barely. It's really hard to see. Heavy lag than an ad. Man, I'm so sorry. How about check out Crosscode? They have an amazing jumping death system. One of my friends recommended that game to me. I really should check it out. Is the game like directional or open world? Will speedrunning be a thing, you think? Oh, I really hope it does become a thing, and I think it will. In terms of like the direction, I don't want it to be like an open sandbox where there's just like it's directionless. It definitely needs a direction. So what I plan for it to be is the same level of openness that like a Zelda game is, where it is open. You can go to the different areas, and sometimes you can sequence break too. But generally, it does have a sense of direction. Like you have a very set goal. One bad thing about the Zelda games, though, is that sometimes I think it takes that too far, where it has a story that it wants to tell, and it really heavy-handedly makes the gameplay follow the story. Especially, I think, Echoes of Wisdom is the biggest example of that. Echoes of Wisdom, the Zelda game, it has this really cool sequence-breaking thing where you can like go anywhere at any time because the different summons you get are so overpowered. You can climb up mountains and stuff. But the problem is that even though the game lets you do that, it doesn't let you do that because the story just like stops in its track unexpectedly. It's really, really strange. Howdy. I'm so sorry. You told me how to pronounce your name, and I can't remember what it was. Was it? I'm so sorry. I can't remember what your name was. I'm so in love with the new jumping mechanic. Abdul, thank you for reminding me. The jumping mechanic, yeah, I'm a really big fan of the jumping mechanic. It is very complicated to implement just because of this whole idea. These colliders can walk into each other when they're on the ground, but in the air they behave differently. It is pretty tricky to get working. What platforms will the game release on? To start, just Steam. But I am definitely considering putting it on mobile. I think I can handle that. And then from there, like that's a long ways off, by the way. I don't think I can consider thinking about any other platforms besides Steam for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and then maybe mobile after that. But like that's a very long game plan just in that itself. So I don't really know if I want to put more thought into it than that right now. This definitely needs to adjust some things in the existing maps. Yeah, I think every map is going to be adjusted to account for this. And really, it opens up a lot of options for level design because, like for example, pretend that this water pool is like a lava pool, and then there's like a platforming challenge where you have to jump onto little rocks and jump across the lava. I think that'd be really fun. That's very honestly, but like consoles. I have no plans for consoles right now. Steam, then mobile, but no plans besides that, like I said. This is the kind of innovation that gets me excited for the game more and more. Thank you, I appreciate you saying that. It gets me excited really too. The water can be marched with the jump by making the player dive into the water, explore treasures on the bottom. That's an interesting idea, yeah, where there's depth to the water areas as well. Would you ever go to a physical convention like PAX East-West for showing the game? If the game reaches a point where it's really close to being finished and I actually think that that would benefit me, like getting the word out, I would consider doing that. I went to PAX West once as just like an attendee, and I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And seeing all the booths and stuff, like, that's not really my vibe, to be honest. The idea of being in a big convention hall with tons of people and they're bugging you and stuff. I would love talking with fans and talking with people in person, but at the same time, I'm also kind of like antisocial, where I get worn out by social situations pretty quickly. Have I played around more with Codex, or did I go back to Claude? I did play around with Codex, and I was very, very, very unimpressed. I'm very sorry. I gave it a super fair shot, and in fact, I gave it scenarios that I compared exactly with Claude, and Claude just did a better job. I was much happier with the concise, thoughtful code that Claude put into it, beyond just how I presented it, because last stream we were talking about how the Codex thing was not verbose, and that's not a good or a bad thing. Really, I'm more concerned with the output. And even still, the output that Codex provided me, it was so much more complex and wordy compared to what Claude was able to do with the same amount of context, the same prompts. So overall, like just on that anecdotal experience, I wasn't very happy with Codex, but things change constantly. In fact, the funny thing about these models is they change even within the same build. Like, I remember when GPT-5 came out, and there were videos claiming that GPT-5 was like the next magical thing. And then when users actually got to use it, it almost felt like the model was nerfed. And it does feel like they have like a knob that they could twist and turn to make it better or worse, depending on how much money they want to sink into it. And OpenAI especially, I get the impression that they spend and sink a lot of money into their models because it's not cheap to run these AI models all the time. So what I'm getting at is that situationally, when I tried out Codex, it didn't work out very well, and Claude did a better job. But I also know that these things change very frequently, where the quality is not going to be set in stone for very long. If I ever go to a big conference, I will only communicate with other attendees through Discord. I mean, that's nothing wrong with that. Can a player collide with objects, but in jump state he ignores them? That is definitely the most complicated aspect of this, is that right now when you walk into a box, the box is hard and collidable, but you jump onto it and suddenly it's not. Suddenly the player's collision is not accounting for it. So the reason that works is that the physics wrapper that I wrote, this is like my own personal wind field that I created. There's lots of questions on if you should use wind field or not, and I don't really know what the truth is. Another ad. I have the ads set to the lowest possible threshold. So you can turn them off. I don't have them turned off. I have it set to the lowest possible threshold that allows me to put it. YouTube Premium. I also have YouTube Premium, but at the same time, like, I'd rather people have a good experience than make a couple extra dollars from the people watching during the live stream. I think it makes more sense for me to enable ads after the stream, maybe? Like, does that make sense to have, like, the VODs can have ads, some. Like, again, I don't want to have too many. But being interrupted during a stream and you can't see what's happening, that's just so obnoxious. I've already gotten 3 since the stream, but it's okay if you leave the ads in. 3 in, because it's only been, how long has it been? It's been 20 minutes. 3 in 20 minutes is ridiculous. That is so bad. So thank you to Real Danny for letting me know that it's been not good this stream. If it really does keep up, because I can't stand that. I was saying earlier how I don't even watch Twitch at all anymore because whenever I click on a stream, I get too many ads. So someone was asking about this Z overlap concept. So the idea of how the collisions conditionally collide with each other is there is every prop also has a Z value. Like the player has a Z value, but all of these colliders also have a Z value. And like right now, this anvil has a Z value of 0, and the player, when he jumps, the Z value goes up. So the Z value of this collider on the ground, it's increasing. Like the shadow kind of represents the Z value of the collider. If you watch the shadow, you can see the shadow shrink, and that kind of represents how high the Z axis this collider conceptually is. And so when you're in the air, it just ignores anything that's not on the same level as it. In the same way, let's say that this box was floating in the air. It was just like a few feet off the ground. The player would be able to walk under it. I should make that. I should see if I can make that and demonstrate that at some point. But if you had an aerial object, you would be able to jump into it because it's just doing a Z-axis check. Right now, the Z-axis is the same for these two colliders, and so they collide. But when the player's in the air, it's not the same, so they don't collide. And it's a little bit more complex than that as well, because there is a height of any Z-axis checks. Z overlap. On Z overlap, Z overlap. How do they calculate this? How do I do this? On Z overlap. Oh, check Z-axis. This is it. Check Z-axis collision. And so you have these two colliders. It's checking to see. And every collider has a Z height. And it's just doing this check in addition to the regular checks. And before double jump. That's an interesting, cool idea. What could I do for that? I was trying something earlier where you could roll midair. I guess you still can do that. Well, that's actually kind of cool. Like, roll into it. Actually, it gets kind of buggy. Yeah, when you roll midair, it gets really buggy when it's interacting with the props. Dan's enough. I'll keep that in mind. Sorry, I get distracted sometimes because I just like jumping around. The game became really fun when you can jump. Any good free vector art software? I use Inkscape. In fact, the majority of the art that I use for my channel is Inkscape. In fact, I'm gonna give an example because I made a video that I posted yesterday actually about shaders, and I made the thumbnail for that myself. And all of the thumbnails that I make is done using Inkscape. And Inkscape is an SVG, like, vector art tool. I bet most people make their thumbnails in something like Photoshop or GIMP or something like that. But all of my high-res art, I really do have a tendency to use Inkscape. And this is what it looks like. So this is what the thumbnail looked like. Is like this. And how it works is this vector art tool, like, it really is that. You can just draw vector shapes and then give them different opacities and stuff like that. So really, I was just using this and putting in all these different shapes and images and shaping them around until, oh, and look, I was experimenting down here as well with some other stuff. But I'm a big fan of Inkscape. Inkscape is completely free. I think it's also open source as well. Loved your shader videos. Still not many resources out there for shaders. Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I wanted to post, is that shaders as a concept is kind of foreign to a lot of people, including me. I was uncomfortable with the idea of making a video like that because, to be true, I'm not very experienced with shaders. I have made a lot of them at this point. It's been many years now that I've been using them, but all of my knowledge is kind of self-taught. And so I was scared to make a video about it because I could be getting all of this wrong. I think that the information I gave in the video is completely accurate, especially considering that it is pretty entry level. It's just an introduction shader video, nothing too complex. But at the same time, I think it's likely that I made mistakes in it. And getting into any more complexities, I think that it would be nice if someone more experienced than me would be able to do that. Will the game feature any spells or abilities, skill tree or anything like that? It's long story short is yes, but it's my own take on it, because I don't really just want to put in like a skill tree for the sake of putting in a skill tree. I do want it to be thematically and gameplay relevant, and I don't think the game that I am planning to flesh this out into would fit having like an EXP system or a skill tree or something like that. What I plan to have is more of like Zelda style progression, where you get items. You can have tons of different weapons that you can find, and then you can like increase your max health and increase your like movement speed, and maybe the jump can do more damage, or different abilities like you're immune to certain elements. So all of these different upgrades are things that I want to have, like the character is getting improved through items and collections that you get. And then from there, one thing that I'm also considering is some kind of like non-canon extra mode, or some kind of like roguelike mode, where you take your character and just go through like a crazy gauntlet, where I can at that point put in some crazy abilities. Because one annoying aspect about putting in abilities and stuff is once an ability is added, the character permanently has the ability, and so now everything in the game needs to be balanced around the character having that ability. So if I could come up with tons and tons of abilities for this player to have, and I could bind them to different buttons. It could be really, really complex and cool. But the problem is, then I would have to account for that throughout the entire rest of the game. And if the game ends up being long, or if I add extra levels or extra like DLC or something like that, all of that has to account for these overpowered abilities that I added all the way back in the main game. And I don't really, I kind of want to be a little bit more reserved as I flesh things out. Are there many things to make yet before releasing it? Oh, dude, I really wish the game was farther along, but the truth is I just keep going back and reworking things. Like this jumping system is entirely rebuilt, where this wasn't possible in the old engine. The other thing is that you can have multiple players in the game now, and I'm going to show this real quick, because if I do input, I think, yeah, here. So I have it set up where instead of having players and enemies, instead everything is a mob. So this player character, this is the same class as this dummy. This dummy is a mob, but it has health, and I can kill it and stuff like that. And the player has a lot of the same properties as that dummy. And since that's the case, that means that there can be like an infinite number of mobs in the game. So, oh, this is great. Look at all my friends. I'm going to turn the debug off because I want to make it so that I can see their eyes blink. That's the funny part, is when you can see them all just like blindly blinking. Also, is there a way that I can make it so its color will be randomized? Because color. At some point in this file, it tries to get... Okay, I see what it's doing. That's fine. I'm enjoying my own game. Yeah, I really do like to enjoy this game a lot. Okay. I think that I can jump on them. Okay. It's a little weird. It's a little weird, but it's not too bad. How many can I add before it starts to like slow down the game? Is your game idea you shared the basics on your Discord? Ping me after the stream and I'll take a look. I don't think there's a limit to the number of these I can have. Technique de ninja? I'm afraid I only understood that last word you said. The seeing of that design is making me imagine Shadow here, character like Shadow Link. Oh yeah, totally. This is really funny. You can make a ninja technique. Ah, interesting. Well, that reminds me is like this idea of having the roll midair, of being able to roll midair. Oh look, whoa, you can push them in the water. That's really funny. They're just like mindlessly, they're like weird hollow bodies. Okay, the game is definitely slowed down. Like you can see it lagging a little bit. 3 ads are crazy. Okay, I think that's enough enough for me to be convinced that I should turn ads off. It's so expandable, World's Dungeon. That's what I mean, is like, I want to go back to working on this engine, or I have been working on this engine, because I really see potential with fleshing this out into something big. But also, it just makes the whole thing fun. Oh, see, like, look, I can make like a little platforming challenge where I put these guys in the water, and then I have to make it across without landing in the water. I can do that. Boop, boop. See, that's awesome. I love this game. Whee! You're making an engine now? No, I mean, like, this is... the thing is, Love2D is a framework. Love2D is the code that gets, like, this window up and running. It handles the graphics processing and interacting with the keyboard and controllers. It handles a lot of the low-level, really, really low-level stuff just to get the software up and running. And then there's also the engine side of things, which Unity is a fully fledged engine because it has like the well, I don't know, it just has more of a workflow involved, whereas Love2D is very lightweight, where it's just like it's giving you the tools to create whatever you want. So when I say engine, I'm kind of referring to the baseline code that gets everything to run, like the collisions, the drawing, the hitboxes, the input, the physics, the update loop, and the camera. So these are all of these files, I categorize these all as engine code. But at the same time, Love2D is the engine. This is just the engine that makes the game logic run. So it's kind of like a blended area. What happened? Oh, there's been an apocalypse. So many people. I really do like that they that they swim when you push them in the water. I also like that you can like turn this into a platforming challenge like this. That's so funny. Don't like the floor is lava and you use your friends. Okay, I need to restart because like having that many characters is causing problems. This is the game now. Yes, exactly. Get in there. Get in there. He's jumping. Yeah, that's my new feature. I'm a big fan. This really does open up a lot of potential where floating things in the water, or like if this was lava, you can't normally make this jump, but if you jump on these little guys, you will be able to. That's so funny. There's no colliders along this wall. That's why he was able to go through like this. What a cutie. Jumpshire. Heck yeah. Oh man, this is like the most game-changing update. I'm so happy. This is so satisfying. Now you can add parkour. I think like that's what this game needed. I didn't even realize how much it needed parkour until I added it, but it definitely does. Just being able to jump on all this stuff is fun. It just makes it feel more interactable, because before, in the previous engine, you wouldn't be able to interact with this kiln object at all. It would just like be a big box. It would just be a big block that you couldn't interact with at all. You could roll into it, because like before you could roll into stuff like this, and that's kind of interesting, but being able to actually like... Oh, the sign's moving. That's weird. Man, I could just do this all day. Guys, I think I made a fun game. How does jumping work when you're drawn behind cliff or other objects? Yeah, there's like Z ordering and Z layer drawing. It's really complicated. But the way that works is if I go up to like this tree over here, when the player is in front of the tree, like the axe, you can see very clearly the player is drawn first. And then behind here on this side, oh no, well I guess you can still see the player's behind the tree. It's like barely. And you were asking what happens when you jump behind a tree. I think that would be a bug. I think right now this is a bug where you can jump through trees. I don't want you to be able to do that. Really what I need to be able to do is set it so that certain objects have a very high Z height. Because I was saying before how you collide with the box because you're on the same Z level axis. But when you jump, you are going into a higher Z level axis, and so it allows you to jump over the box. And that Z level height is determined by like the collision. Like this box is a rectangle. I'm gonna turn the colliders back on so I can show this real quick, and I'm gonna fix it. Because I think that this is something I can configure pretty easily. Just don't include the guys as the things you jump on, please. That's cool, thank you. So in order to jump over this box, you need to get off the ground at least as high as this hitbox is. So, and you can see it when I jump, there is a small moment where you have to actually rise up high enough to get over that hitbox. And it's the same with this tree's hitbox. Why is that so janky up here? I think there's a problem with the hitbox detection. That's so weird. I need to make it so it's artificially tall. The height of this box needs to be taller conceptually. And I think I can do that. Maybe the tree shake? Yeah, I could do that. I think that the boxes do that right now. So if you look really closely at like this barrel, if I roll into it, it shakes. So I have that in place. I need to do the same with the trees. So we can see that all colliders have a Z height. And by default, the Z height is calculated to be the same as its collider's height. But like I was saying, that tree needs to be much higher than that. So I'm gonna see if I can pass this in. I definitely can. How this works is the prop object is going to have tree. Okay, so all trees, I'm going to give them this property Z height equals 1000 for now. I think a better process would be a Z height factor. Actually, I am going to implement that Z height factor. And I'm just going to set this to 3. So right now, by default, the Z height for any collider is set to the same height as its regular dimensions. So if a tree had the dimensions of, I'll show you real quick. It's saying that the Z height of like this telescope is the same as the height of this rectangle, or that the Z height of this box is the same height as this rectangle. But really, this tree, the height of this tree is much higher conceptually into the air, the Z-axis, than this rectangle. This rectangle is very short, and that's because you can like walk behind it and stuff if the freaking collisions were working. But now I need to change it so that you can change the Z height factor. So instead of being just the height, it's going to multiply by, I'm actually going to multiply by more, by like 5. Then over in physics, when we set Z height, I'm going to say if args.z height factor, then collider.z height equals collider.z height times args.z height factor. Can you tell I turned off code complete? Now I have to type everything. I turned off code complete for the video. So I think that should be enough to fix that issue where now the tree is conceptually much higher. Oh, it didn't work. It did not work. Let's see what I need to do. Maybe 5 is not enough. No, 5 should be enough. Why wouldn't that work? If args.z height factor. Did I spell this right? Is this being passed properly? Because there is a lot of... Actually, I don't think it would be. I don't think it would. I think that what I need to do... Collider wherever the collider gets created, I need to pass that property because I don't think it was being passed. Vessel args. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Vessel args. Oh, this is complicated. So the prop doesn't actually have a collider. The prop has a vessel, and the vessel has a collider. So I need to pass that into this. I need to say z height factor. I don't like this. Why should I have to manually pass this in? I guess I'll do this. No, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense because is z height not provided? It's z height's not provided anywhere in here. Oh, that's strange. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking for all kinds of little things that I'm missing. But what needs to happen is the prop has a vessel. The vessel is the thing that has a collider. And so I need to go over into vessel.lua. And so the vessel is the one that creates the collider. So this call args. Collider configs. Collider config. Use provided config if available, otherwise use defaults. Actually, I think I can just put it here. I can say if args.z height, then I'm gonna turn code complete back on because this is really easy stuff. Whoop. Because it's gonna complete this, and then same with if args.z height factor. There we go. Is this good? So what's happening here is the args that pass into the vessel come on, prop. Now I need to pass in z height equals prop.z height and then z height factor. Here we go. Okay, so now the prop is going to receive the z height from our plant. So we set the z height factor to 5 here in the plant. The plant passes that value to the prop. The prop passes that value to the vessel. The vessel passes that value to the collider. The collider now has the z height factor, and then it multiplies the z height factor. There we go. I figured it out, and I bet it's going to work. So now the idea is that I can't jump over the tree. Oh no, it didn't work. Oh, I got so cocky. I got so cocky and it didn't work. It didn't work. What a shame. I was so confident that that would work. Hopefully I didn't misspell something somewhere. Or maybe props are not actually setting all the args. I think it should though. Does it have utils.apply? It does. Apply stats, args, any additional args. Maybe the plant is not passing it to the prop properly. It really should though. It really should. I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't. Okay, let's see if I can at least get some of these changes to show up. Let's make sure that this is actually receiving these changes. Okay, so the tree is now not static. So you can push the tree around like this. All right, so we're off to a good start. So that proves that this code is being passed. Now the z height factor, is this actually being applied to the plant? Plant stats, plant classes, class props. Sure. I actually think that I actually think class properties should be set first and then... Yeah, this is actually out of order. It shouldn't matter though, because Z height factor starts as... Man, this is really frustrating because I really, really, really thought that that would work. I wonder what I can do to test this. That's Z height equals collider, that's Z height times R to Z height factor. Yeah, sorry I was looking at this code for a while. I wasn't reading chat. I'm sorry about that. It's really a pain in the butt to do the art for me though. It's like designing the UI animations. It is a lot of work. I actually enjoy that process though. I'm trying to design beforehand so you don't worry about it. You can only do so much. The way I found is that as I start developing the game, it starts to reveal more and more things that I can add to make the game better. For example, when I started developing this game, I did not have any intentions to put in a jump button. But after like implementing elevation, like a Z-axis for the mobs, I realized that it's actually kind of fun to jump around. So I'm glad that I did that. The tree is still not static. What I need to figure out right now is I'm so frustrated that for some reason, when I pass this Z height factor, it's part of tree, plant at classes. Plant at classes happens down here, class process classes, so it should say tree for the value, and it say plant stats. Okay, so it doesn't apply it if it doesn't have it, which is fine, it doesn't have it already. Plants don't have a Z height factor. Collider args. Oh no. Oh, this is messed up. I figured it out. I figured out the problem. The problem is that plants, specifically the trees have their own custom collider logic. This is so messed up. This should not be here at all. This should not be here at all. What should happen is the prop needs to create it, because then the prop is going to create the vessel. The jump attacks are going to be crazy. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, when you're in the air and you press the attack button, what should happen? What should happen? I could make custom attacks, like an aerial attack, or I could make it like do a dive bomb attack, or maybe there could be like aerial combat, kind of like Kingdom Hearts. And Kingdom Hearts, you like knock enemies into the air, and then you're airborne for a lot of the attacks, which is cool. Okay, but now we need to fix this because the way plants work is these grass things on the ground here, these are called plants, obviously, but plants are the same object type as props. So this chest here and the grass particles on the ground and this box and the logs and the anvil, all of these things are considered props. So these are just objects. If something is an object that doesn't really have a mind of its own, it's considered a prop. So this grass on the ground is a prop, this chest is a prop, and this box is a prop, and this tree is a prop. Now the tree is considered a plant, and the grass particles are considered plants. So the grass and the tree are more closely related than you might think. Now the problem is, when I first implemented plants, I just manually applied a collider to it, but that's not what I want. Instead, I wanted to leverage the props collider logic. So how does it creates a vessel this time? So it shouldn't create a collider at all. It needs to, really it just needs to apply all these properties to itself. And width and height, it should already have that. If plant, yeah, so it already has that. And these values are going to be passed in collider args. The template plant? No, we don't need that. We don't need that. I don't think I need to worry about for non-physics plants. I don't think I think this is old code. I think I need to delete this. I think that that was ruining all this. So is there any other... Yeah, there's no other collider stuff in here. So what I'm worried, or what I'm wondering, is will the tree have collision now? It does, it does. It's... Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't move it over. I forgot. And Cacticrown, hi, welcome in. I like your name. Probably distance check, there's a function for that. Tiramisu is overrated, it's a sweet butter. I've actually never had that before. Did I do something wrong here? Or maybe, you know, maybe it actually wasn't doing that. What I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to... Let's make a new map. Let's make a new map that is just the tree, and then we can get some debug stuff to see what's going wrong. Because, by the way, I want to debug this myself. It is an option that you can open up like the AI thing and ask it to fix things. Like look, I noticed that the buffer for jumps wasn't working. And so I started debugging it, but then I'm just like, is the buffer processing jumps? And then it looked, and then it said no. And I could do the same thing right now. I could ask it, can you trace through the code and see why isn't this z height factor being considered when passed all the way to the physics? And I am very confident that it would be able to figure it out. But I don't really want to do that because I want to stretch my brain. I want to set a good precedence for everyone. When you use AI to solve your problems, you're not going to learn from it. So it really is important to practice this stuff on a regular basis. And I guess I'm going to try that right now. But if I can't figure it out, you know, AI is going to come in clutch. What the problem is, actually, I think already the problem is a little bit better because before I wasn't able to walk behind. You weren't able to walk behind it. You can learn from it if you understand what he said. Nope. I disagree with that because what actually I think happens is right now, if I ask the AI to solve this z height factor problem where I'm asking it to step through and figure out what the problem is, if I ask it to do that, it is robbing me of the experience of doing that myself. If I had to step through the code and figure out precisely how this code works and figure out where is this z height factor property going, where is it going, where is it changing, if I had to do all that process myself manually, I would gain some experience from that. I would learn something. It would stretch my brain in some way or another. It would challenge me. It would get me more accustomed with my code. It would expose me to other lines of code that I don't always interact with. And if you use an AI to do this, you get none of that. You are leaving EXP on the table if you have the AI solve your problems for you. And really good point, you're right. It's a balance, is that I acknowledge that an AI right now would be able to solve this problem faster than I could, but also I need to acknowledge that when you ask someone else to do work for you, you are not going to learn from it. You can appreciate the result, and I will agree with you that seeing the result of an AI can teach you things. For example, I'm going to pull up an example right now that I think is pretty decent, is my shader video. My shader video, introduces at the very end, I show snippets of some extra AI, not AI, sorry, some extra shader code. So my shader tutorial, I show this code at the end of it, but I kind of just like glance through it. I say the grayscale shader, all it does is it calculates like the average. And what I'm getting at here is if I was a newcomer to coding or a newcomer to shaders, for example, and I was trying to figure out some of the stuff, I think it would be perfectly acceptable for you to say, hey, I'm working on a sepia. Do you guys know what sepia means? I'll pull up a picture of sepia color scheme. Sepia versus grayscale. I bet that there's an image that shows this. Okay. So, Adele Adams said for bug reports. Oh, print values, you see if it's null. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm gonna do, but that demo's ancient. Yeah, so, at the moment, I wouldn't really worry about reporting bugs because the demo on Steam is so old that the bugs are kind of irrelevant at this point. They're either fixed or not there because the engine's really different. Okay, so what I'm getting at is if you were a newcomer to writing shaders, for example, and you followed my shader tutorial, and my shader tutorial teaches you how to write this whiteout script, and it teaches you how to write this light script. And then at the end of the tutorial, it kind of teases you with this grayscale one. It shows you, like, this is what the code looks like, and this is the trick to it. And I think that you can learn from that. Even though I gave you the answer here, I told you that you calculate grayscale by doing an average of the RGB, and like divided by 3, that's the average. So you calculate an average value and you apply it here. Even though I gave you the answer of how to create a grayscale shader, you can still learn from that. You can still look at this and say, oh, wow, I didn't actually realize that grayscale worked by simply taking the average of the RGB and then reapplying it to the color. And that's how you get grayscale. So this is how you apply a grayscale to an image. And similarly, let's say that you wanted to write a sepia shader. Right now, like speaking personally, I don't actually know how to write a sepia shader. I've never written one, and I don't know what the logic for doing that is like. And, you know, I think it would be kind of cool to learn. So what are my options here? I could look up online, how do sepia shaders work? Well, what's the logic to creating an effect like this? Or, I do think that it is a viable option to open up your code editor where you're writing your shader code, and for you to highlight the section, and for you to say, I understand how this grayscale shader works, but I would like you to write a corresponding sepia shader so I can better understand that effect. Okay? And it's going to run for probably 30 seconds, and it's going to magically produce some code that is going to explain how sepia works. And at this point, you have the option. Are you going to take this code and run it and call it a day? Or are you going to look into this and take a look at this code, and we can analyze, apply sepia tone transformation matrix. These values create the warm, brownish, vintage photo effect. So really, this doesn't, this only kind of elaborates how the sepia tone works, is that it's a very distinct set of RGB multipliers that creates the warm tones. And this is something that, I don't know. I feel like this isn't really something that I would learn better in any other way. I think that this is just cool that it was able to produce this code, and now I can see sepia works by applying a very precise set of multipliers to each of the RGB values. And then it clamps them naturally. Min R... Oh, okay, so it's clamping it to max 1 and then returning it. So that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and add this to the repo, by the way. Added the sepia shader. And now, when we go back to the GitHub, wow, look at that! It's here! So there you go, guys. Now the shader.lua file has one extra shader for you to try out, and this one is more of like a mathematical calculation towards getting the, like it says, the warm brownish vintage photo effect. What biomes do I have in mind? I definitely have like the forest and snow areas, and then like I have an underground cave area. I have the sky cloud area. There's like the aquatic, what do you call it? The like the sewer area. Kind of annoying how VS Code treats and colorizes that shader code like a string. No add-ons out there to fix that. There probably is. In fact, that is one thing I was considering. That's a good call out. One thing that I was thinking about is making it so there is like a, I'll call it sepia.glsl. I don't know if there's a way for me to take this code here. Because GLSL, okay, so here's the truth. I bet that there is a way. A moon area is a great idea. I definitely should do that. I bet that there is a way to take this GLSL code, and it's in a file called sepia.glsl. I bet there is another ad. Thank you for letting me know. I think that from this point on, I'm going to turn ads off, or at least for next week, I'm going to turn them off. But I'm going to make sure that the ads can stay on for the VODs, because that's kind of an important aspect, I think. I'm trying to export my game to, but exe file can't read path correctly while .love, yes. Make sure that you have all of the like DLLs in the same directory that it needs to be in, because like if you take a look at some of my builds, give me 1 second while I pull that up. To builds and Moonshire. This is what my build looks like for Moonshire, is that we have the exe. I'm sorry, it's very small, by the way. We have the exe. That's just one piece of it. All of these DLL files need to be in the same directory. If any of these DLLs are not here, then the game will not work. But the .love will work, because when you run a .love, it's actually running your local instance of Love2D. It's running like your installation path. But when you're running an exe, it's not running your installation path. This is the installation. There is no Love2D installation anymore. It's trying to run moonshire.exe, so it has to use any dependencies it has, which are parallel. So that's how a build works. And really, if you look at the game files for probably most games, it'll look similar to this. Most software has the exe, the executable, and then surrounding binaries are just there to help make it work. Like you can see there's a love.dll, a Lua DLL. This is the Steam DLL. DLL, again, is just like a binary. It's not an executable code. It's something that the executable looks to for functionality. I'm 9 months into learning programming as a new game dev with AI assistance. I've gotten to the point where a lot of the time it feels like a hassle to give AI as much context as it needs. It is a hassle, but yeah, you're definitely right. I'm making music for the OST. Yes, I am making the music myself. As much context as it needs compared to writing it by hand. It is situational. There are situations where writing it by hand will be faster, because if you know in your head what line needs to change, then you can just go change it real quick. It would be more time consuming. Like if I knew that for some reason the player was moving to the right when I pressed left, it's faster for me just to look here and change this plus to a minus than it is for me to open up the AI tool and explain to it, when the player walks to the left, it actually moves right. Please investigate in the love file or the main.lua, possibly in the update function, to verify that the movement code is correct. If it's actually correct, and blah, blah, blah. So you're right, it's definitely situational. But at the same time, there are situations where it is faster. Like, for example, even if I knew to a T exactly how to write this sepia code right here, it still would have been faster to generate it. Even if I knew exactly off the top of my head every single one of these multiplier values, it still would be slower to write it by hand. Objectively, it's just faster to explain, please write a sepia shader, and then it does it. And then from there, like for example, let's say I wasn't satisfied with the sepia levels that it gave me. What if I thought that, oh, this shouldn't be 0.769, this should be 0.569, or I want to have more blue, so I'm going to bump all these blue values up. So you can mainly adjust all these too. Dynamically linked library. My personal Godot game project is ready for people to try out, but I'm paranoid of people hacking the source code and art from the game executable. Should I take security measures to prevent this? The truth is, I'm actually going to pull this up for the engine that I'm using. The truth is, if you produce software and put it out there for the world to use, people are going to decompile it and read your source code. They are going to take the assets out and analyze them. There is no avoiding that. I say that because even AAA games have this problem. Where is this? Source obfuscation. So I'm using Love2D. Oh my gosh, sorry, it's taking a second. I'm using Love2D, and Love2D has this problem where if you have an exe, like me, I have this moonshire.exe, it is possible for people to take that exe, extract out the Lua source code, decompile it, and just read the source code. That is possible. And there are steps called source obfuscation that can help with obfuscating it, but the key word is help. There really is not a true way to 100% obfuscate your code. If AAA games by million-dollar companies can't do it, there's not too much that we can do either. People are persistent. It even says here, while these tools may obfuscate the code, a veteran programmer will be able to reverse engineer the code similar to those mentioned earlier. So these steps in here, where they write like these complex Lua bash scripts that like, I don't know, encoded in some crazy way. You're building Lua JIT integrated with your code base. It's complex, but nothing is too complex for people. Nothing's too complex for AI, honestly. Honestly, I bet that if you opened up this AI freaking tool and if you said decompile this exe so I can read the source code, something tells me you'd be able to figure it out. Just call it a hunch. So no matter how hard you try, I don't think there's a way to truly obfuscate your code to the point where people will not be able to see it. And that raises the concern. Are people going to be able to steal your code and steal your assets? The answer is yes, they will. They will. If you are selling a product, and this is not just software and video games, this is any product. If you sell a product out there, people are going to take that product and try and replicate it. They're going to try and copy it. This is like, have you ever ordered something off of Amazon and it's like, oh, this is kind of like a cheap knockoff of the real thing. This is not anything new. So if you have something worth stealing, people are going to steal it. And you can take these steps to obfuscate it and make it harder, but there's only so much you can do. There's something that does protect you, the law, copyright law. Yeah, a lot of people choose to ignore the law. And I'm with you that the law helps you legally, but how are you going to enforce the law when the person who's stealing your code is on the other side of the world? Like, if you live in the United States and some guy in like Indonesia just happened to get a hold of your code and decompiled it and is stealing it, how are you going to enforce the law where they're at? You can't. People are going to steal your code no matter what. They're going to copy it and they're going to pirate it. If you are selling anything for money, it's going to be stolen. Sorry. Like, I really wish that that wasn't true, but you can take legal steps to help. And that helps with local problems, and that helps with you enforcing your IP and protecting yourself. That is a step that is necessary, but it only goes so far. Why don't I use Vim, by the way? Vim, are you talking about the IDE? I'm a big fan of VS Code. I just use VS Code. I really, really like it. Also, we decided copyright laws aren't enforceable since Gen AI hype wave. I think that Gen AI does put a wrench in the gears, but like copyright law is still a thing. It's still important. AI makes it harder to like track and enforce, and AI or copyright law is difficult with art in general because, like for example, think about how copyright works with art or games. Okay, like let's say that I designed a character for my game, and then someone designed their own character that kind of looks like it. That's copyright infringement, in the same way that AI copying another person's character is copyright infringement. So is it AI's fault, or is it the person who's copying its fault? I think that there's a human component to this that leads to malicious copying, and then there's a computer component that leads to like blanket copying everything, all the data that it can find. Just gotta shuffle around the source material with random distortions, and you can claim copyright law isn't valid. OpenAI sold trillions in IP when they trained GPT and their GAN image generators. I've heard claims like that as well, and I'm sure that there's some truth to that. I think that the real problem is that it's emerging technology, and the law is not able to keep up with how quickly technology is changing. AI is so wild and crazy how powerful it is, and the law doesn't even know. The law is still stuck in like 10 years ago. Indonesia catching strays. I'm so sorry for I just decided to say a random country that was very far away from where I live. I didn't mean anything by that. I apologize. Honestly, jumping gives the idea for a challenge. Then no jumping would be real cool if you made possible challenge. Yeah, totally. That's an interesting idea where it's like if you can make it through a certain level without jumping, you get an achievement. The law will and should be the solution. This is another reason why the world needs to be united into a one whole thing. I see your point. The problem is it's just too lofty. Is that just in practice that won't ever happen. I think that on paper that's a good idea though. So back to, what was I doing? Oh, I was gonna see if I could figure out how to load this GLSL code into this Lua code, even though this is marked as GLSL, because I bet there is some like VS Code extension. In fact, we can probably browse for it for GLSL. This says this extension is deprecated, so we're not gonna use that. Here we go. A lint. Do I want linting or do I want? I don't want linting. Linting is when it tells you you have syntax errors. I just want it to highlight. I just want code highlighting. I don't want that either. I guess I'll just install this and see if it works. This is a widely used one. It has 200,000 installs, so I'm okay with installing it. Oh, okay, that worked. Yeah, so that did actually add proper highlighting for this. So this is a little bit easier to read now. So that's good. So now the goal is I want to somehow bring this GLSL code into shaders.lua, and I bet there's a way to do that. It says syntax highlighting. I must have missed that, so I'm glad it does. And okay, so what I'm gonna try, this is gonna be kind of weird, is I want to try asking the AI to load this GLSL code as a string into the shaders, because I, right now, do not know how to do that. So right now I have two options. Do I look up online how to load external files as a string and then implement it myself and then learn from that, or do I ask the AI to implement it and then analyze what it did and then learn from that? I don't know. I think they're both valid, because I do think that if I implemented it myself, I would learn more from the experience. But also, if I ask the AI to do it, I think I have a little bit more confidence that it would be done in a proper way, and also it would be a lot faster and easier. So let's go ahead and ask that, because I just want to see if it would be able to handle it. So let's try that. I'm going to say all of this GLSL code is stored as a string in a Lua file. I don't like this, and I created a parallel sepia.glsl file that contains this same shader code. Could you implement some way where that string gets, or no, where that code, because it's not a string, where that code gets pulled in as a string and passed to this shader? Hi, I slept through all three of my alarms. No big deal, so it's okay. We were doing just fine. I'll be load the shader from an external GLSL file. Oh, love the file system.read. I guess that makes sense. Okay, so what it did, actually, I'm just gonna bring this down to one file. I know you probably shouldn't do that in case there's an error, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So now, shaders.sepia is all coming from one single line, and it's coming from a GLSL file. So we get the code highlighting from having the .glsl file type, but then it gets pulled directly into shaders like this. That's pretty cool. Let's see if it works. Let's actually let's see. The problem is I'm running this from, I don't actually know. If I run this, I don't know what's actually gonna run. It actually broke, so it says bad argument number 2 to new shader, missing position or effect function. Huh? It actually didn't work. Yeah, it actually broke. It didn't work. So the code that it write was not accurate. It broke. So what I want to do is I want to copy this error code and paste it into the AI so it can fix it. But I can't copy it right now. You look like Michael. I look like Michael Reeves. You were not the first person to tell me that. I'm just gonna manually ask it to fix this problem. Line 28. Bad arg number 1 to new shader. String expected got nil. Oh, the file path is incorrect. I need to freaking pay attention. Yeah, I need to actually read. I need to read. The problem was that it thought the path was shaders.glsl, but it's actually just shaders.glsl. Okay, that's what it should be. Okay, that fixed that problem, but missing position function. Again, it did break, so let's go ahead and fix that. I'm gonna change it back to what it wrote, just in case that's the problem. I don't think it's the problem. Oh, that was the problem. Okay, so it did work. It did work. So now let's try and utilize it. Instead of calling grayscale, we're gonna call sepia. Sepia. And it worked. I think I'm actually going to turn sepia on for the background too, so we can see it a little bit better. So that's on, and I'll get rid of this so we can see all of the colors. There we go. That's our sepia shader at work. That's pretty convenient if I'm being honest. This format of having a GLSL file that actually stores all the GLSL code, and then over here in shaders, it's able to, again, I'm going to try and get this all into one line. Oh, I don't think I can. I think I need to do this. Yeah, for some reason it does have to be on 2 lines. It says could not parse vertex shader code missing position. So maybe, I don't know why that wouldn't work. It's just storing the value here. But that's fine. We can go ahead and do this. So, I guess it's kind of cool. Odd behavior. Yeah, I really don't know why that doesn't work. I would have expected this to work, because I really like having everything on one line. This should work. Here, I'll ask the AI, why doesn't this work? And I'll give it the error. I'm being such a bad example because AI's solving problems results in people not learning, and I don't like being the person that does that. Okay, so... Oops, that's the wrong game. Give me 1 second while I pull this up. AI takeover, I know, it totally is. It's like, when you have... It's one of those things where if it's actually useful and it's giving me good stuff, that's nice. 26... Could not parse vertex shader code. So let's see if it knows why. It probably will be able to figure this out. Crash on line 26. Could not parse vertex shader code. Missing position function. I also use AI too much. I don't really learn. That's what I'm most worried about with AI, because it's the same with me, where it solves problems for me, and I'm thankful that I went through a whole career of software development without AI, so I've already challenged myself plenty. I feel really experienced. But at the same time, if I continue to use AI too much, then I'm gonna become less skilled. I think that it's a fleeting skill like anything else, like a muscle. What? You didn't change anything. You need to tell Love that you're only providing a pixel fragment shader. Can you show me what's in your sepia.glsl file? The code should work. You didn't add any code. You added a freaking function. Or a comment. Man, the AI is being very, very silly. It doesn't get it. I find it so cool how I found your vids trying to get Devlog to watch, and I found your old Devlogs. It's cool. That's awesome. My honest reaction when my scripts isn't working is just ChatGPT. That is I would say that's a bad reaction in general because, but is it though? Because before AI, when I ran into a problem, I would search online for Stack Overflow. And I don't know if people use Stack Overflow because AI is just like a better version of it. Stack Overflow is like a forum where people would ask programming questions, and then if anyone had a solution to the programming question, they would just post the response. And that was a solution for a lot of people. But now you can just ask AI the same question, and the AI will just scour every database of every forum anywhere on the planet, and it'll just tell you what the answer is. Sending hello from Brazil. Hi, welcome. No Stack Overflow is basically dead. That's kind of the impression that I got too. What did I miss? I was sleeping in. Not much except for the big jump. Wolf, I need to show you the big jump. That's the big update. The big update is that the player in this game can now jump around and jump on props. I think this is very, very fun. Also, you can hurt enemies by by jumping on them. But yeah, after I stopped working on this, I went over to work on the shader stuff because I also posted that shader tutorial last night. And that shader tutorial was a big pain in the butt, by the way, I gotta say. What time is it for me? It is 11:23. 11:23. You can also use AI good and bad. If you just take the code, it's bad. If you read and learn from the code, it's okay. I was saying earlier how it's kind of both, because even if you learn from the code, they still gave you the answer. The process of finding the answer can teach you things. Because if I didn't know earlier, I was working on this Z height factor problem, and how currently there's a bug where in this game, when the player jumps over a tree, you kind of like jump through it like this. I don't want the player to be able to jump through the tree, and I'm able to fix that by adjusting this Z height factor value. But there's a bug right now where this Z height factor property is not being passed properly all the way down the line in order to get to physics.lua. It's not reaching this point for some reason, because if it was, then this Z height would be multiplied by 5, and then we wouldn't be able to pass through the tree anymore. Actually, I guess I could do a print and say print Z height adjusted by factor. So this is going to tell us if there is even a Z height factor. Yeah, so nowhere in the prints, this print does not show up. So the Z height factor of this collider, of the arcs, is not here. It's not here. So if it's not in the args, I'm going to go backwards. The args come from prop. So here's the vessel args. Z height factor, prop.z height factor. It should be included in the vessel args. And use collider config. Collider args? Oh. I don't like this, but I found the problem. The problem is that there's a separate collider args that prop provides. I guess that does make sense. I don't like that though. So what I'm gonna have to put this here. I'm gonna say collider args dot z height. Yeah, like this. Okay, so what was happening is I was passing that value through the vessel args so that the vessel would have that value, but that's not what happens. Instead, the vessel receives this collider args and it passes the collider args to the vessel, and then the vessel uses the collider args. Oh, obviously that's the problem, right? Obviously. So does that fix it? If I jump through that tree, is it gonna let me jump through it? Whoa! It worked. Look how much taller the tree is. Okay, so like that's a pretty good demonstration of the height factor. How like if I'm holding left, I have to reach like the apex of the tree in order to get over it. And if I set this instead of height factor to 5, I can set it to like 10. It's gonna be too tall to jump over anymore. Oh. No, there's a bug. There's a bug. Yeah, this is a problem. Because what's happening is that it's not actually reaching the apex. It's incorrectly thinking it reaches the apex. So that's a problem. That's a problem. The height factor does not need to be 10. It can stay at 5. But there's a problem with the physics collision detection where for a moment it's incorrectly thinking that there's a collision even though there's not. Oh man, that's frustrating. That's gonna take a lot more work to figure out. But I am glad that I figured out why the z-height factor wasn't being passed, because now I have it. Now the z-height factor is actually being passed in to physics, and that was the main problem I wanted to solve. But now there's a new problem where even though the z-height factor is being set properly, it's not enough to keep the player from jumping over the tree. Because the whole point is, I want the z-height to be so high that the player can't get over it. Because like the stump, the player can just jump right over the stump. There's no challenge. You can jump over the telescope and even jump over the boxes and stuff. But this tree, I want it to be too tall to jump over. And it's working. Like, you can see I can't jump over it until the very tip top. But that's not because I'm actually reaching the top of the tree. It's because it's, like, glitching. It's glitching. House tour? A house tour of my house? I mean, the only interesting thing in my house is the stuff behind me. Like, my game collection is actually cool. But besides that, there really isn't anything in my house that's worth showing. Jumping and top down? Yeah, it's pretty challenging. I think the main thing that makes it work is that the collider for the player stays on the ground when you're jumping. I'm gonna call this good, and I'll fix the tree thing in probably after stream, because that's gonna be it's gonna be really precise. It's gonna involve a lot of like physics adjustments, because there's probably like a off by 1 issue or something, or when it switches directions, something like that. I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and see if all that works out. Yeah, it's still really bugged. But again, I am happy that the z-height factor is being passed. It's just bugged out. Make like a 24 hours as a video game developer. I like how that sounds, but I find those videos a little, they're not quite for me. It's just they feel very, almost like they're very scripted. They feel scripted is what I'm saying. When really my day as a game developer is like I sit at a desk or I'm pacing back and forth. There really isn't anything that special about it. It's not very glamorous, I'd say. IRL stream when? I think that this stream kind of counts. I do. I believe in you. Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say. I'm a pretty good storyboarder, so I think I'll cook. Go for it. That's awesome. We want to see more of my personal life. Okay, I see what you mean. I think that what I should do is post like regular updates or pictures on Discord or Twitter or something like that. I want the spear to pogo stick when you click attack in the air. That's a cool idea. I was thinking about that because there's a great sword. I have the spear. And it would be awesome if the spear had some sort of like aerial attack where it's a downward strike. Oops. Why did I stop publishing on TikTok? The honest reason why I stopped publishing on TikTok is just because I stopped using TikTok. I was really excited to post on TikTok earlier, like back when I was really active, mainly because I was an active TikTok user. I was on TikTok all the time and I loved it. And the main reason I stopped was just because I found myself using TikTok less. I just don't go on it as often, so I switched to using YouTube more often. And also the thing is, posting to multiple platforms is tricky because with TikTok, it would have to be short form content. I'd have to make shorts or the TikTok format. And I like making those videos, but those take a lot of work. Compared to streaming, streaming feels very natural and it doesn't take as much time out of my day. This is something I like. Another ad, thank you for letting me know. My game would be called Heist Runner. That's a cool name. I like that. Earlier in the stream, I was talking about and asking if the player should be able to roll midair as like a dash. And I'm not quite sure. One thing I was considering is like the player can jump while they're in midair to do like a rolling extra jump. In fact, I think I even implemented that in player probably. This is jump. No, this would be in mob move. And jump. There was somewhere in here where I think I can just say self.roll if I say jump. Oh, can area. Okay, there we go. It's a flag. It's super easy. So I can just set the player to can aerial roll, hero, and then I can say can aerial roll to true. Okay, so I did already implement this. Do I recommend Godot to start? What am I using? Godot is a great choice. I'm using a framework called Love2D, but there's lots of good choices. There's Game Maker and Love2D and Monogame and Unity and Godot and Unreal. My recommendation is just to try them all out because they're all free. Do I remember when you turned off some kind of shader or something in my low-quality Moonshire? Yeah, I do remember that. I'll show that real quick. That was the draw scaling. That was in draw... where would that be? That might be in load. Set, scale, set... Default filter, here it is. If I turn this off, it's gonna make everything look weird. Actually, it's very weird because now it reveals a problem with the shader. So this is another thing that I did between last stream and this one, is that I made it so that the player's coloration happens through shaders. It wasn't like that before. It happened through multiple pieces, but I actually managed to make it set up where the player sprite is entirely just the red version, and then it uses shaders to recolor everything. I really, really like how it's set up now. I'm gonna see if I can shut it off real quick. But since it's all blurry now, it breaks the shader. You can see like the yellow, like, oh yeah, that's really broken on the back. You can see like the McDonald's, the McDonald's outfit. So let's see, we have the hero. This is essentially what it's like, and I've shown this before, but this is like essentially the one and only version. We have the different layers, and each layer can be adjusted with different colors, and those colors are based on shaders now. I used to have like a different sprite sheet for each different color, but now it's not like that. Now it's just the red one, and then I use shaders to recolor it from red to yellow or blue or whatever color you have equipped. Have I been progressing on more levels? Recently, no. I've been focusing more on like engine level stuff to make sure that fundamentally things feel good to play. But yeah, the game looks really weird when it's like this. It looks really blurry because it has because it has interpolation on the scaling. With pixel art, you want no interpolation on the scaling. That's why you use the default filter of nearest linear scaling. My homework ate my dog. Oh, that's unfortunate, Mythical Rock. I was wondering how would I be able to make a Henry Stickmin-like game, but as an original game, like a simple puzzle game with only a few options and scenes for the first game. That does sound complex as a first game, because Henry Stickmin is like a platformer type game, and platformers are pretty approachable, but they are still more complex than other games. If you really are starting from scratch, I would start with something even easier than that, like Pong, and just make it so that you can make things move around. Put any character into your game and make it move. Like, you say you want to make a Henry Stickmin-like game, just start with putting a character in a blank, empty room and make that character move around. If you are able to do that, then take the next step and like add collectibles, add things that you can jump on. Just take it one move at a time. Pong mentioned, yes, Pong mentioned every stream without fail, every time, for sure. The balance of the universe has been preserved, definitely true, yes. So now that the scaling is back on, it is back to normal. So again, yeah, the coloring is back to normal too, because again, the way that the colors work now is through shaders, and I think I can show this too if I go to Hero, Color. It gets the color from the profile, which is a little bit hacky. Color, set outfit. Oh, you know what? I could probably manually call this. I think I can call this in the input function. I'm gonna try. Blue. I don't think this is gonna work. It might though. It did not. Maybe it's not dot. All I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see if I can change the color of the mob that gets created to something different. Because I showed this earlier in the stream how now that I have mobs, everything is a mob, including the Henry Stickmin. Is it not a platformer? I must be misunderstanding it. Maybe I'm thinking of Fancy Pants Adventure. If I can't remember what Henry Stickmin is, I apologize for that. Does hyperlevitation exist? Or is it just something that my fellow game... Hyperlevitation? That's interesting. Also, I'm now doubting myself that I can't remember what Henry Stickmin looked like. I thought it was a platformer. Oh, I do remember this. Sorry, I was thinking of Fancy Pants. I wasn't thinking of this. This is like the Choose Your Own Adventure game, right? That's where it's like it's just a guessing thing. It's the one where you like follow the character like a Newgrounds cartoon, and it gives you options. I do remember this. I was mixing it up with Fancy Pants something or other because that's another Stickman game. So I was picturing a stick game, but yeah, something like this seems fine. But obviously, the focus of one of these flash games like Henry Stickmin is that it's all art focused. Like the whole appeal of this game is that you have the characters and it's animated and it's cute and cool. It's not really about the gameplay. And Henry Stickmin is my favorite platformer. Yeah. Definitely proof that I misunderstood which game I was talking about. I'll show you the game that I was talking about. I was talking about Fancy Pants. Fancy Pants flash game. Yeah, this is the game I was talking about. Is you're like this stick guy, and like run around and stuff. This game's really fun. Whoops, I don't want to actually play it. I just wanted to look at the images. But this is the game that I had in mind, so I apologize for thinking of the wrong one. Yeah, Henry Stickmin is like a narrative-focused one. And that is a really cool idea, though. If I was brand new to game development, but I wasn't new to art, and I could make good artwork. You said we will see the game before winter. I would sure hope so, but it's hard to say. Actually a great platformer. Yeah, I love this game. I love this game. I think that I would put Henry Stickmin in the category of like visual novel almost, because even though it's like animated and cartoony, it does still seem to be all about the visuals and the animation, where the logic of the gameplay isn't very deep. Remember that one game where you draw designs? I can think of a few games. There was not Drawn to Life is what the DS game was. There was this DS game called Drawn to Life. Let me see if I can find that too. I always have to move my thing off the monitor. Drawn to Life DS game. Oh, I don't want to actually go here. I just want to see the images. But these were the games where you could like draw your own character. They made a SpongeBob version of it too. That's really cool. I wish I could show some gameplay of it though. I think really it is just that where you draw a character and move with it. Who would win, Hydrogen Bomb or a bottle of wine? I'm not quite sure about that. I can only imagine the challenge of making the collision. I wonder what the collision is like for this, because like when I see this scene right here with this pixel character, it kind of makes me think that just like every arm has the same collision as every it doesn't matter what you draw is what I guess, is that every head always has the same hitbox, every arm always has the same hitbox. It doesn't really matter what you draw. That's what I would guess, but I don't know for sure, obviously. I didn't actually play this game. I played Scribblenauts, but that's not a drawing game. Scribblenauts. Because this is a game where it's kind of deceptive. You would think it's a game about drawing, but it was a game more about like spawning in items and then using those items to solve challenges. But I don't remember you needing to actually draw with like the stylus or anything like that. I stopped using Chrome. I jump back and forth. I use Edge a little bit more than Chrome, but I do use Chrome as well. I use them both. Scribblenauts is amazing from a technical perspective. I think it's amazing from... Yeah, I think it is too, because Scribblenauts is a game where it's like... This guy says, oh, I don't have a way to get back home. Or like, he says, I need to get to the top of this giant vine tree. And then you need to think of, oh, well, what could I create that can help this guy get to the top of the tree? And it's like a hot air balloon. So then you type in hot air balloon, and then it spawns a hot air balloon into the game, and then you give it to the guy, and then the guy flies away in a hot air balloon, and then he's happy. It's really cool how like they actually solve these puzzles in such a cool sandbox way. I do remember that. It was like, you could say, I want a red unicorn, and it would actually programmatically create a unicorn that was red. That was really, really neat. Ad, thank you for letting me know. Definitely next stream I'm going to turn ads off, and we're going to try that. Make a game with the cookie clicker mode. Not a bad idea. That would be simple, for sure. Gotta go now. See you later. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you being here. One thing I'm noticing is that it seems like the player is able to... Yeah, look at that. I was able to jump out of bounds. I don't want that to happen. This is a bug. Why would that... Oh, that's so weird. I think walls always need to have a very, very high Z height factor, like 100, so you can't jump over it. You can make anything pregnant in that game? That's so weird. Why don't I implement the climbing on hills? Because the game needs some level of structure. The game can't be just entirely open where you can go anywhere, because then there's no levels. There needs to be some walls, is what I'm saying. There needs to be some walls that you can't jump over. And maybe I could adjust the sprites so that the walls in this game look taller, but there needs to be some containment. I'm a big fan of games that are big and open, but at the same time, if it's too open and there's no containment, it feels aimless. So, I don't want them to be able to jump over these cliffs. I want there to be some sort of barrier around the edges, but maybe I could make it read a little bit better where it's like, you definitely can't jump over this. But you can make the level dungeon with hill climbing. That's the other thing, is that, like, even if I do implement hill climbing, like, if I can jump up here, the logic of being up here is kind of odd, because now the player is on a different, like, level than the rest of the stuff. I guess that's fine, because now the mobs and props have a Z level axis that I could use as part of the calculations. It's just getting into a really big level of complexity. I kind of want to set a limitation where you don't jump up the hills. The hills are like, that's the edge of the map, and you are in the levels. Otherwise, there's no levels. It's just like big areas. Add a secret with the climbing on walls in a specific place. Maybe. The problem is, okay, so this is a problem with Silksong. I just finished playing Silksong like a month ago, and a problem that Silksong has is that Silksong has a lot of fake walls, okay? Silksong has a lot of walls that when you hit them, when you hit these fake walls, the walls break, okay? So there's a lot of fake walls that break away. And it feels good to find a fake wall and break it away, because it's like, oh, I discovered something. This was a fake wall. It looked like it was real, but it was actually fake, and I found it. That feels good. The problem is, this means if you want to find all the fake walls, you have to smack every inch of every wall in the game. And that's not an exaggeration. If you want to play Silksong properly, and you want to actually find all the content, it is a requirement that you hit every wall. You can't just go off of visuals, because the visuals are very subtle. If you just go off of visuals or hints, that's not enough. You really do have an incentive to hit everything. And if you don't hit everything, I am very, very, very confident that you are going to miss some walls. So, I am hesitant to put in hidden breakable walls in my game, because I don't want players to go around hitting every single freaking wall of every single freaking room. I think that's super obnoxious. When I play through Silksong, and I watch casual players play through Silksong, they are smacking every wall, and it's really annoying. But that sounds like Metroid. It's exactly like Metroid. In Super Metroid, you have to shoot every single block of every single wall if you want to find all the secrets. And some of the secrets are really well hidden. You have to shoot everything. Super Metroid is even worse, because there are literally no indicators. It is just a shoot and find out thing. Just make the fake walls slightly different. Okay, that is a fine solution. And in fact, Silksong does that. Silksong might even have visual indicators for where the fake walls are, but they are subtle. They are subtle. You say just make the fake wall slightly different? Okay, how much different do we make it? Do we make it so different that it's obvious and no one's going to miss it? Or do we make it subtle, where it's only slightly different, okay? So if it's slightly different, now the problem is players are going to be like squinting at every single wall to find what it is. And then that opens up an accessibility problem. What do players with low vision do when the solution to the problem is to squint and look really closely at every single pixel? I don't want them doing that either. I came about Silksong, but in Hollow Knight, they usually look a bit more odd from regular walls. They do, but they are still, you still have the incentive to hit everything. Because even if they look different, it is subtle. They are hidden. If you smack every wall, this is what I mean. If you are playing optimally, and you say to yourself, I want to find all the hidden walls, you take two players. One player uses visual cues to look for walls, and another player actively smacks every wall. Okay, so you have the one person using visual cues, they are looking with their eyes trying to find the walls, and then the other player is smacking every single wall to find them. Which player is going to find more hidden walls? The person who is looking with their eyeballs and playing the game and looking, or the person who is smacking every single wall to find every single wall? I think the person smacking is going to find more walls than the person looking. And I think a lot of players are going to realize that. I think they're going to realize, I don't want to use my eyes because that introduces the possibility of me missing something. If you smack every wall in Silksong, you're not going to miss anything. But if you use your eyes, I think that you are likely to miss something, is the problem. And it's a lot of work to make them look different, but not too different. Is that, yeah, it's the balance. In the Zelda games, there are bombable walls, and they look very obviously bombable. But in Zelda 1, there are bombable walls that don't look bombable at all. They just look like normal walls. So in Zelda 1, you have an incentive to place a bomb on every single wall, because there's no indication. You just have to blindly place bombs everywhere, and maybe there will be a bomb. And same with like the burnable bushes in Zelda 1. You can burn bushes to find hidden grottos, but there's no indication. You just have to randomly burn every single one until you find it. And that kind of exploration and discovery is not very interesting to me. It's tedious. In Silksong, it does feel good to find a hidden wall and find a new route, but the process of finding it is tedious. It felt very tedious for me when I was playing that game because I was actively hitting every single wall. Make it like obvious but not too obvious, visible for players with low vision but not something to smack walls. I don't know if that's possible. Like, The Real Danny, I agree with you that that is the solution, but executing that solution, I don't know how possible that is. It seems too lofty of a goal. Does it exist a way or an algorithm that creates the world map? My game is manually created. So I use this program called Tiled to create my maps. And the game code looks through all this data, the tile data, the positions of all these objects, and it spawns them in. In Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword, you get to whack the walls, and only some of the bombable walls are obvious. Yeah, I think that in those games it's bad as well. I think that the more hidden walls there are, the more likely people are to smack hidden walls. Here's another example. In Elden Ring came out a few years ago, and Elden Ring has fake walls. Elden Ring has walls that are fake, and when you hit them, it reveals rooms behind those walls, or extra corridors. And it's very cool to find. It's very fun to find them. It is a problem in the game, though, where you feel that temptation whenever you enter a room to smack every wall. I didn't when I played through Elden Ring. I didn't feel that compulsion to smack every wall. But I have watched streamers play Elden Ring, and some people do smack every wall in that game because you never know. You never know if there is one or not. I think Elden Ring does a good job of communicating where they are, of signaling where they are, and also Elden Ring has the community aspect where you can place like markers on the ground, and that kind of signals them. Elden Ring also, now this is the worst part about the thing. This is the worst part about all of this, is that Elden Ring has one wall that is fake, but it does not break when you hit it once. It breaks when you hit it 10 times. Okay? I'm gonna see if I can find the article about it because it is horrifying. There is a wall in Elden Ring, and they might have patched it out. Elden Ring fake wall that must be hit many times. Okay? Elden Ring's super illusory wall may be the biggest troll of all. So in the volcano area, the Volcano Manor, there is a wall that is a secret wall that you can break through. 50 hits! It takes 50 hits to get through the wall. Okay, so there's at least 2 of them where it takes 50 hits to break through this wall in this area, okay? Now, the reason I don't like the existence of this wall, it's very funny, but now there are going to be players out there that are going to hit every wall, not once, but 50 times at least, because there is a wall in the game that you have to hit 50 times to break through. And there's no indication, you just have to blindly hit it. Might be accidental if it's so rare. It might be accidental. It very well could be. But it does exist in the game. And the existence of this wall disturbs me. Because that makes me wonder, how many other walls are like that? If there's this wall that breaks from 50 hits, are there any other walls that break from 50 hits? What if there's a wall that breaks from 100 hits and we don't know about it? The only way to find out is by hitting randomly. And also the argument of make the walls visible so that you can see them. How do you know that the developer didn't put in any truly fake walls? Like, I do think Silksong, every wall is visually apparent in some way if you look close enough. But are you sure about that? Like, do you know with 100% certainty that that's true? Especially if it's your first time playing through the game. Are you certain that's true? You definitely can't be certain because it's your first time playing through the game. So the only way to be certain is to smack every wall. Even if you have evidence that seems to think that they are visually represented, you don't know that. Can you explain how to make an attack kill enemies? Yeah, so in this version of the engine, I actually haven't implemented that yet. All that I have implemented is that when an enemy has enough of its HP reduced to 0, it'll disappear. So like this enemy, it just disappears whenever I put enough damage on it. Also must be maddening for some devs to have to leak their own game secrets because nobody found them. I don't know. I bet some devs kind of like that, where it's like, yeah, I see all these people talking about this stuff and they don't even know. They don't know my deep, dark secret. That would be a fun thing. Have I ever used the OAuth 2.2 pattern? I don't know what that is, I'm afraid. OAuth, that sounds familiar. What did I use that for? I'm afraid I don't know what you're referring to. In the Steam version, killing enemies is satisfying. Yeah, I think it is too, because they explode. That's the big thing, is that in the Steam version, I'm gonna implement this in the new engine as well, is that when you kill an enemy, it doesn't explode right away. You'll kill it, you'll hit it with the final hit, and then it'll launch away from you and then explode. So that's a really big trick to making it satisfying, is that a lot of games do this where you hit an enemy and then it explodes and dies immediately in place. But I think it's a lot more satisfying. You hit an enemy, it knocks back from you, and then explodes. That, I think, is very satisfying. We're about at the end of stream. I got a few more minutes, but if there's any final questions before I call it quits for the day, that would sound good. Oh, why am I yellow? I'm yellow because the game is able to shade out any colors with any other colors. So I think if I go to profile, I can change all these yellows to blue. And I'm going to have an interface in game that can change this properly, but all of the coloration for the player now is handled through shaders. It's taking a while to start up. There it goes. And now he's blue. I'm a big fan of how this works because it's actually using the shaders to swap out the colors. If I go into color, I think that color actually has these shading values. So it's actually really cool. When I say blue, I set the player to blue, what it does is it looks up this blue table and it finds the light blue, the main blue, and the shadow blue. And that's why the player, you can see each of those three colors. There's the light blue at the top and the dark blue at the bottom, and then you get the gradient. I love yellow. Yellow is one of my favorites too. I think yellow, this character is my favorite one. If it were destructible walls, you could try making one that's visible, not obvious, and pinging on your Discord server. I mean, totally. When you said we were potentially see the game before winter, were you referring to a full game or demo? Demo. My immediate goal is to have this new game engine version of the game on Steam and playable, but I don't know when exactly that would be. I would love for it to be by the end of this year, before the end of December. I would love for that. And I think that's possible because I'm making good progress recently, especially with this Jump edition. I feel a lot more confident in the direction of taking this engine places. Because the player is a mob, and now there's all these other mobs too. I love it. It just makes so many different players. Look at all these different players. I'm making the music too. Yeah, I am. Yeah, when will the jewel come back? Yeah, the achievement isn't achievable right now. Get in there. My favorite thing. I am so excited to start implementing levels like this where you bounce off of stuff. Ever considered playtesting viewers' games? Probably not on stream, but I would definitely do that. Oh, God. New engine is a newer version. When I say new engine, yeah, I apologize. I'm still referring to the same Love 2D framework engine, but when I say new engine, I'm talking about like the fundamental code that runs the game. In this updated code base, I have this engine folder, and I have all of these files that power everything, I think, because you have like the collisions and the hitboxes and the camera and the update loop and the physics. I already said that. But all the stuff happens in engine, and these fundamental files touch everything else. And right now, I'm trying to make the game as fundamentally solid as possible. And it's getting really close. Because everything's a lot more modular now. It's really good. What about an inventory? The way the inventory works is you have set items, like you can have gold and a certain number of gold, or items like that. But then you have item or weapon types, and then you have the different colors. I think that this is functional. Oh, it doesn't work right now. That's actually broken. Ad warning. I'll wait until the ad is over, and then that'll be the end of stream. Because I think that that's a pretty good time to call it. So many people. These are all my viewers coming to say goodbye. They're all standing around waiting for me to leave. And I'm bouncing on their heads. Moonshire MMO is looking great. Yeah, totally. It would be, like, legitimately, it would be really awesome if one day it got to the point where tons of people could be playing in the same instance. Oh yeah, there's one gold there. What the heck is that? The gold's broken too. Because the gold, you're supposed to be able to pick it up from like the chest. I didn't even show that. I'll show this real quick because there's this chest over here. Uh-oh, it's broken. It's broken. There's a different chest over on the other side. Also survival, no. I'm not gonna make any survival aspects. Oh, it's broken again. No, I'm so sad. Oh, man. Seeing the game has a jump mechanic, does it have a Z-axis, or it's just illusions? It is just illusions. That's a very, very good question. Is that the game truly is 2D. There truly is only 2 dimensions. It's a flat game, but it uses a bunch of math trickery to emulate a Z-axis. It really is all fake. Is polymorphism possible in Lua out of the gate? Anything is, because Lua tables are so modular, they really do accommodate something like polymorphism, but you need to be clever with it because tables are so flexible and you can apply any property to any table, including functions, so you can treat them like classes. So that's the way it's done. And on that note, I'm going to call it quits for the day. It was a very, very good stream. I'm glad I was able to show off a lot of the jumping stuff and the shader stuff. It really was a good time. Why do I have a README file? No particular reason. I think that actually the README file was generated automatically. And yep, I'm going to be ending stream for the day, and I will be back next week for yet another Moonshire Monday. Thank you all so much for being here. I really do appreciate all the support, especially from folks that are here a lot, like Ole, The Real Danny, Tidge Lipa, Mythical Rock, Andreas, Cooper, Shay Negravy, Cammy. Thank you so much for being here, and I will be back next week for yet another Moonshire Monday. Thanks, everyone. Bye.